All right, let's get it. Breakdown, matrix, square up B. Not sure what the B is for, but this is a Java exercise and I'm doing it in Codewars. What's up? First of all, right off the bat, you look at the description, just X this out right here. This is all bullshit. Don't even bother reading that. Move down a little bit. I don't know why these exercises sometimes just include BS that has nothing to do, wasting your time kind of stuff. Get that shit out of my life. I need to do some coding. Okay, so given an integer b greater than 0, create and return a b by b matrix with the following pattern. So you're going to be given an integer b, and that's really going to say the size of your two-dimensional array. That's what it's going to be. A b by b matrix, your two-dimensional array. So if I'm given a 2, I'm going to create a 2 by 2 array. Given a 3, I create a 3 by 3 array. So B is going to determine the size of your, I guess you could say, square matrix, because it's going to have the same number of rows as it does columns. Like, you're getting a 3, it's going to be 3 by 3. 3 rows, 3 columns. That's the deal. And then it says with the following pattern. So you're going to create that matrix, your B by B matrix, and it's got to follow this pattern that's being specified here. What the heck is the pattern? Let's take a look. And as a programmer, you got to be able to spot patterns. That's a thing you're going to have to do to get better at coding, is like seeing certain things, seeing certain outputs, like what is the pattern here? So looking at each of these 3, look at it for a couple of seconds and you can kind of see that the way this is built is that on the bottom row you have numbers in descending order from B to 1. For each of the bottom rows, that's what you got. B to 1 for here. B to 1, B to 1. That's the first thing I see with this pattern. And then as you go up, you have a larger number of X's that become part of the picture. And then on the first row, it's going to always be all X's except for 1. See? All X's except for 1. All X's except for 1. All X's except for 1. That's going to be the top row. So we can kind of see the pattern for the top row and the bottom row. So like as you craft this matrix, it's going to begin with all X's and 1. Then on the next row, the number of X's will reduce by 1, and then you'll have one more number. And then the number of X's will reduce by 1 and you'll have another number. So the number of X's decrease, the number of numbers increases until at the bottom you've got a full set of numbers but in descending order. So you got some challenges here. You got to decrease the number of X's, increase the numbers, and then also you've got to have the numbers going in descending order. Descending order. Descending order. I'll say it again. You like that, don't you? All right. But that's the whole thing. I mean, it's a decent amount, so especially in a language like Java, it's kind of some cumbersome pieces, of course. But let us dive in, my friends. No time like the present to do some codings. All right. Hopefully I'm still recording here. If not, you won't see it. That's indication, right? If I didn't record it, you guys aren't going to see this. So let me know if this is being recorded. Right? So as the thing says, you're going to get an integer b, and b is, you're going to make a b by b matrix, or really a b by b two-dimensional array. That's really what it's going to be. And you're going to return that two-dimensional array, and it's going to have that pattern that was discussed, where it's going to start with all x's and the number 1, and then the number of x's is going to decrease as you go down the rows. First thing I'm going to do, homies, is create a two-dimensional array, because I need a two-dimensional array to hold what I am going to create. And I'll appropriately call it matrix. And it is going to be b by b, or BYB if you like the Backyard Band from DC. Shout out to the Backyard Band. If you know, you know, my DC heads. So b by b is, of course, b rows and b columns. I'm going to now create a variable for the number of x's, because as you saw in you saw in the description, the number of x's is at its largest on the first row, and then it decreases each time it goes down. I'm going to create an integer for the initial amount of x's, and then this number of x's is going to decrease as it goes down. I'll call the variable xs, and I'm going to make it equal to b minus 1, because if you look at the description, or the examples, you notice that the number of x's is always going to be b minus 1. Like for this 4, the number of initial x's is 3, which is 4 minus 1. That's why I'm starting it there. I guess I'll just keep coding here for now. I'll expand that out a little bit soon. And then now I'm going to create my nested for loop, because I'm going to need to loop through here, loop through the two-dimensional array, and create my elements. This is going to be standard, where I'm going to start I at 0 and go I less than b, because b is the boundary. When you do a nested loop, the outer loop is going to be vertical, where I'm going to go row by row vertically in the outer loop. And then on the inner loop, I'm going to go across the row. So outer loop is row top to bottom. Inner loop is going to be across the row. So the elements, and you can say the elements in the subarray are for the inner loop. And here's the inner loop. And really it's going to be similar in that J is going to go across the row. Its limit is still going to be B, because there's B columns as well as B rows. B by B. All right, so up to this point, it's just a standard two-dimensional array traversal situation. But so now I've got to account for the number of x's and the number of numbers. So I'm going to do that with a conditional, where I'm going to say, well, let's kind of talk about the difference here. As I go down each row, the difference is that like the number of x's is going to decrease and the number of numbers is going to increase. How the hell do you do that? Well, you create a conditional that says, as I'm going across, if the index that I'm on is less than the number of x's that I'm supposed to produce for this row, I'm going to keep producing x's. Like if I'm supposed to have 3 x's in my first row and I haven't produced 3 x's yet, I'm going to keep producing x's. So it's going to be like this, like if j, my index, is less than the number of x's that I'm supposed to produce, then I'm going to place an x at this index. But if the number of x's I'm supposed to produce has been reached, then I'm going to put a number, and that number will be a descending order number, because as you see, the numbers are in descending order. So I can't go forwards, I got to go backwards. And what it's going to be is, and yeah, this is a string array, so I've got to do a conversion. I got to take a number and convert it to a string, but how am I going to get the number? I'm going to do b minus j. That's how I'm going to get the number, because I'm going to take the number of items in any row minus where I am with my current index. So like, let's break it down here. Like for this number 3, there's 4 items in the row, but on this 3, I'm on index 1. 4 minus 1 is 3. That's how I get the 3 there. That's b minus j in that specific scenario. And so like, if I'm not doing an x, I'm doing a number. And if I'm doing a number, I'm going to get b minus j to produce the number. That's how it's going to be. I think I'm expand out here and keep going with the code. I think you got a little, you guys are probably getting the gist right now, so I can get into the flow here. So this is going to cover my row handling of the x's versus the numbers. And then I'm going to have to reduce my number of x's, because, and I have to do that actually. Yeah. For every row, I have to do that, because I'm actually going to go right back out here. You see, the number of x's reduces each row. And so in my code, what I got to do is, you see the inner for loop that's right here. This inner for loop produces a row. This is one row. For every row that gets produced, I need to reduce the number of x's. So like on this row, I produce 3 x's. Then I'm going minus 1 to 2, minus 1 to 1. That's the effect of this right here. I do a row completely, and then I minus the number of x's, do another row, minus the number of x's. That's how it works, my friends. And let me put the finishing touches on this thing, because the number of x's reduces. The number of numbers increases that I put in for each row. And when I'm done with that, I return my matrix. And that should be that, folks. How many times have I said folks? Folks. Let's test it. Gotta be some kind of error, right? No, that's good. And that's good. Ale ale oxen free, correctamundo. All right. That's my time, kiddies. This is matrix square up B. Kind of a crappy name, but it is what it is. It's a good exercise, but not a good name, and explanation is kind of iffy, but whatever, you know. Thanks for putting out the effort, and thank you for watching. With that one, I am out. See ya.